If you haven't already, please go ahead and click on the subscribe button, and while you're at it, click on that little bell too.
What's up, everybody? It's me, E-Man, from E-Man's Movie Reviews, and if you probably heard by now, bad, terrible news. We lost a great one today. The legendary icon, pioneer, just Stan Lee is gone, you know. So today I'm not about to give you some detailed background about who he is and all that. Instead, I just wanted to, share my thoughts with you all about who Stan Lee was to me, my fondest memories of Stan Lee, the opportunity I had to actually meet him and talk to him, and just, trying to remember the positives, So, yeah. So, Stan Lee, my goodness, this guy, it's so funny how, like, look, we'd be lying. Anybody be lying if they were to say, like, we didn't expect this day to come. But it's still one of those things where, like, it's not like you are ever going to be prepared for it, I mean, hey, the man has lived 95 years. That's a good, long life, and I really hope that his final moments were, at least in peace, or at least surrounded by loved ones or whatever. But you know what? I've gotta say, I appreciate and thank Stan Lee for so much that he's contributed. And you know what, also, and I don't want to throw any shade or anything, but, like, shout out to Jack Kirby as well, because him and Stan Lee came together and they put together something amazing. I mean, when we really step back and take a look at what they've accomplished, they've not just created a universe, they've literally created an entire reality, if you think about it. I mean, you could talk about Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, whatever. I mean, those things have got, like, a nice little world. Marvel has given us not only just one world, but multiple worlds and dimensions and timelines and, cosmic beings. I mean, Marvel has gone so far that they've given us the one above all. They done went ahead and gave us God. Ain't that some mess? So it's kind of like, my goodness, one of the best things that any storyteller, a writer, author, whoever can do is to create a world of imagination. And that's exactly what Stan Lee gave us. He gave us his entire imagination and then some. I mean, I can sit back and really think about just my childhood, where my first favorite toy, besides a Ninja Turtle, was an X-Men toy. And it was it was Cyclops, of all people. But, like, my most prized possession was a Wolverine toy. Even though to this day I never could get that brown and orange uniform Wolverine. Like, that was my favorite one. But the yellow, and blue, that's just classic. But like, this is what I'm talking about, though. Like, just those toys were amazing. And then, the older I got, I can remember watching the X-Men cartoon from the 90s, which I don't care what anybody says, those are still great. And then the Spider-Man cartoon as well. I mean, coming home after school was just, it was nothing but fun. And it's not until you step back and be like, wait a minute, all this stuff came from one guy or two guys' heads? Like, really? My goodness. So, I really sit back and think about just how much of a contribution Stan Lee has really made to the entertainment in my life, but also, like, the inspiration. So, but let me just talk about the entertainment aspect. I don't think I'd even have this YouTube channel. I don't think I'd even be a movie critic if it wasn't for Stan Lee, because it was comic book movies that got me into theaters more so than anything. I mean, I remember going to the theater, I think it was in the theater anyway, you know, for something like Blade, you know, or even Fantastic Four, you know, just, I mean, I've seen all the bad comic book movies and all the great ones as well. And, you know, one way or another, you could trace them all back to Stan Lee. You know, I mean, I've even watched some of the old school Hulk TV show, you know, so it's just so amazing how one person could make such a contribution to a genre that traverses different platforms. It's not like he just wrote a comic book and that's it. You know, it was comic books and toys and cartoons. And I mean, it's everywhere, you know. It's just so, the closest comparison that I could give to Stan Lee in modern day terms, he's like the Michael Jackson of entertainment, you know, of comic books and of movies and cartoons. Because if you think about it, Michael Jackson was like one of those few people who literally had decades worth of entertainment that also traversed like just everything. I mean, Michael Jackson made up a dance, just a dance style in itself. I mean, if you see somebody doing Michael Jackson moves, you're like, hey, you dancing like Michael Jackson. It's not like, oh, you dancing hip hop, or oh, you dancing, you know, reggae, or you dancing, you doing the twist or whatever. No, you doing Michael Jackson. And in the same sense, Stan Lee has come through and he has contributed through his imagination, through his writing, an entire category, like an entire genre, you know. And, you know, I'm not going to get into the whole, like, who came first, DC or, you know, Marvel or whatever. And I'm not trying to be a historian here either. So all you comic, you know, experts out there, feel free to write whatever you want to write and correct whatever you want to correct. That's totally fine. I'm really just, you know, speaking from the heart at this point. I'm not doing Google searches and I'm not proclaiming to be a comic book fanatic or expert, but I am a fan to the sense that, you know, I appreciated it from all different aspects. You know, obviously the movies are phenomenal. You know, they are one of my favorite things to just do is to sit around and watch Marvel movies or watch the animated cartoons. You know, that stuff is just amazing. But besides the entertainment aspect, I did also want to kind of touch upon the fact that, you know, Stan Lee was really ahead of his time. You know, this is a war veteran who, in, let's just say, not so friendly times, was still able to have a certain level of foresight that, to kind of recognize that, you know, diversity mattered, that representation mattered. And, you know, I'm just going to speak from, as a blurred, a black nerd, that I don't think I'd be a black nerd if it wasn't for someone like Stan Lee. I don't know if I would necessarily be able to jump into the genre where, you know, there were characters that looked like me, or at least, you know, I could dream to aspire to be. And I mean, I think back of think about the Black Panther coming around in the, what I think mid 60s, 70s, during a time when, let's just say, you know, black representation was not that positive. They went ahead and was like, hey, look at this character who literally fights against every stereotype. That is awesome. You know, that's amazing for someone like myself who could find a character to really connect to, you know, and I appreciate that. I really, really do. You know, and besides that, I mean, my first comic book was Spider-Man. You know, I remember going to the library and just grabbing Spider-Man books, you know, like it was candy, and I couldn't get enough of it. Like, I was mad when they didn't have every single issue and I had to skip issues, just to keep up with Spider-Man. But that was an amazing introduction into a world that I had no idea was so huge. So when it came down to the point where it wasn't too long ago, I want to say it was sometime in 2017, Stan Lee had announced that he was no longer going to be doing comic conventions, and this was it for him, right? And I was just sitting here thinking to myself, like, okay, you know what? I can no longer take this man for granted anymore. I have got to go meet him. I got to go take a picture with him, because, you can't sit here and do this much for all of us for this long and not even get a thank you for it. So the least I could do was to, I paid that $100, for the C2E2 picture, and I did not care. It was worth every penny. It means so much more, obviously, now. I'm actually kind of regretting that I didn't go ahead and, just get the autograph as well. But the picture and just that few couple of minutes was worth so much. And I mean, if any of you have probably met Stan Lee, I'm pretty sure you guys can attest to this, but it's almost like, so I remember when I was walking up to him and it was finally my turn to, take a picture. And, if you've been to a comic convention, these pictures are like, all right, next. All right, stand there, smiles, move on. And time just slows down. It slowed down for a quick second, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, Mr. Lee, thank you so much for everything. And it was so funny because I'm sitting here thinking like he's just going to like smile, nod, look at the camera, and then, all right, move along. Because, look, the guy's like 90 something years old. He's probably tired, ain't have a nap yet. So, whatever. But he stopped, looked at me dead in my eyes and said, no, thank you. You have made this worth it. I don't know. I felt like a little schoolgirl or something. I was just like, it was so stupid. It's so weird, but it was so funny how like this guy makes you feel like he's always known you, like he was that grandpa you never had, or he was just that old friend from like so long ago. And it was just, I don't know, it was like an aura. It was something about him that was just like, man, you are the coolest person on earth, and I'm not talking about like celebrity starstruck. It was just the way he engaged with people. And I mean, like, I'm sitting here looking back as my turn was over just to kind of see how he would, interact with other people. Cause, I thought I was special for a moment there, and I was, but he genuinely spoke to people and interacted with people the same way. And that was so amazing to me. It didn't feel, generic. It didn't feel just practiced or rehearsed. Like, he really enjoyed fans. And that's everything. And I have to say that, God willing, if I ever, and I don't expect this, but if I were to ever blow up and get to levels like him, I want to be like Stan Lee. Stan Lee is someone that I would like to be just like, because he always remembers everybody. You know what I'm saying? Or he at least gives everyone equal, fair, and honest attention. And I think that is amazing. I think that is something that you want from people that, mean something in your life, and Stan Lee is just freaking amazing, man. Like this. Thank you. I wish we could find a better way to say thank you. And all I can do right now is just really just make this video and just kind of put this out there, because he really did mean a lot, By the way, I know a lot of us have had these questions out there, but Stan Lee did pre-record a lot of cameos ahead of time, which is awesome. Because I can tell you right now, I can be 95 years old and I still want to see Stan Lee in certain in Marvel movies. I don't care. I don't care. You know, but if I'm not mistaken, I want to say that like a couple years ago, he actually signed away his life rights, whatever that means, to 20th Century Fox, I want to say. And so I'm assuming that that means that, you know, you can use his likeness or image or whatever. But given the fact that Disney has bought Fox, I'm assuming that Disney has those rights. But I could be mistaken. If anybody knows or has more information, please let me know. But yeah, so we at least are going to get more Stan Lee. We will get more of him in Avengers 4. He already shot that cameo. He shot a couple other cameos that I'm assuming they've kind of, you know, just stored up and they'll just work around. But hey, CGI and special effects are getting real good nowadays. Go ahead and CGI him in. I'm okay with that too. You know, and guess what? Every time I see him on screen, it's going to be a nice, big, you know, clap of applause. Just, yes, thank you, yes, yup, yeah. And that's what it's going to be because Stan Lee is the man. You know, this guy is, he's one of those people that I don't think people are really going to understand how deep he really intertwined into our lives until, you know, you really sit back and think about it. So anyway, I really didn't want to make this like this big, long, drawn out thing. But one thing that I have noticed is that, you know, my story is not the only story out there. A lot of other people have very similar stories or interactions with Stan Lee. So I'm very curious, what is your story about maybe just what Stan Lee has meant in your life? Or do you have like a certain story about meeting Stan Lee? Do you have any cool memorabilia from him? Because I feel so salty now that I hadn't at least gotten a comic book, you know, autograph, because he was autographing everything, you know. But yeah, feel free to let me know your thoughts about Stan Lee and what he meant to you, what Marvel Comics, you know, the universe, what that means to you. Yeah, so yeah, please let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, your shout outs to Stan Lee, what you thought about him, or any of your past experiences. I'd really appreciate just reading them and, you know, just talking to you guys about it. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, heroes. This is Stan Lee coming at you. Want you to know, we're all part of one big family, the human family, and we all come together in the body of Marvel. And you're part of that family. You're part of the Marvel universe that moves ever upward and onward to greater glory. In other words, Excelsior!